Alright, let's look at Standard 12, Substandard C. Describe the growth of Western population and its impact on Native Americans with reference to Sitting Bull and Wounded Knee. Okay, when the West was opened up with the railroad, farmers are going to move out west. Here's a wagon trail with farmers heading west. Here's another one with a family moving on wagons with everything on here. And they're eventually going to establish homes out on the frontier in the hot, arid areas. They had these side houses that were called sod busters, living in these homes where they had to put sod over it to keep it cool. They had to adjust and adapt to the neighborhood. And here's another sod buster home here. Here's a guy here busting the ground up so he could plant some wheat or some type of crop like that. And here's he got his oxen hooked up to this plow. This ground's going to be very difficult to break. And here's another wheat thresher coming through. Other than farmers, there were miners also that went west. It's going to increase the population of the West because of the railroads. And out here in Virginia City, Nevada, there's going to be a gold find. Here's a lot of trails going out west, moving people out west. So the population is going to be increasing out here in the West. But right out here in Virginia City, Nevada, gold is found. And so a lot of miners are going to head out west trying to find more gold and make it rich. Here's Virginia City, Nevada, here on the map. Comstock Lode was located there, was where gold was found, and a city sprung up where people were mining for gold. And if you know your literature, you know Jack London's The Call of the Wild was up out west, up north was cold, and on the prairie, out here on the prairie, Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. And another group heading out west to increase the population of the West were hunters. And hunters are going to cause some tragedy on the plains. Some negative part of this westward population movement migration, where Native Americans are going to suffer from the farmers and the miners, but these hunters are going to be really a strong kill on Native American ways of life, because the buffalo are killed in great numbers by fur trappers and cow ranchers, and the Plains Indians relied heavily on those buffalo to live. So it interrupts Native American way of life. Native Americans are forced to relocate to reservations. So we see that the buffalo were important to Native Americans who lived out here on these great plains that we talked about, where the land began to elevate and rise up before the mountains. But on the Great Plains out here, these buffalo roamed out here all over this area, and we know that Native Americans had to adapt by living in teepees so they could just pick them up and move with the buffalo wherever they went. So the railroad, when the railroad comes through, it's going to cause a disruption of these buffalo, and it's also going to cause a lot of hunters to come out and start hunting these buffalo. And here's a picture of some buffalo hunters here, field stripping a buffalo and leaving a lot of its meat out just to decay out in the West, and just taking its fur with it. And here's buffalo hides here, a big stack of them here. These traders and hunters getting these hides to send back out west, back east, to anyone who will buy them. And here's some carcasses or heads. They would take the skulls of these buffalo and take them and grind them down into powder and use them as fertilizer. Look at that. It's incredible. All this westward population growth on the plains out here. And we talked about the plains before, and you need to know this geography. And the plains were flatlands, rise gently from east to west. We said that. Low rainfall, dry, real dusty storms, lands eroded by water, and you're going to see a lot of the farming that takes place out there is going to be kind of rough with these little side houses and all breaking the land. All right, so Chief Sitting Bull, let's go ahead and mention him. in trying to give up, in the United States trying to get Chief Sitting Bull and other Sioux Indians to give up their land, he refused and said, if I agree to dispose of any part of our land, meaning the Sioux land, to the white people, I would feel guilty of taking food away from our children's mouths, and I do not wish to be that mean. So he knew what was happening as white population come in, and eventually there's going to be some violence. And Chief Sitting Bull said, when I was a boy, the Sioux owned the world. The sun rose and set on their land. They sent 10,000 men to battle. Where are the warriors today? Who slew them? Where are our lands? Who owns them? And we see here the effect of population growth out west on the Native American life. And here we describe this growth of this westward population and its impact on Native Americans. And we referred to Sitting Bull. Now we need to talk about Sitting Bull and Wounded Knee. Chief Sitting Bull had been moved to on reservations, and in 1889 a treaty was made reducing the Sioux territory even further into smaller and smaller territory. These reservations that were living on, and a religious excitement went through the Sioux people, and they started dancing around this ghost dance craze. And the ghost dance was a spiritual dance that, when done correctly, that the gods would come back, the Indian gods would come and remove white men from the face of the earth, and the Native Americans would have their land back. And in 1890, that started to happen. A lot of U.S. officials in the U.S. military started getting a little uneasy about it. So in 1890, they sent the U.S. Army in to arrest Sitting Bull and to bring him in to try to put down or try to prevent a Sioux rebellion. And when they did, a nervous Sioux soldier actually discharged his firearm and killed Sitting Bull. As soon as that happened, a large group of Sioux were leaving the reservation to get away, and the United States military went out to stop them and to capture them, and 300 Sioux Indians were massacred or killed by the U.S. Army at Wounded Knee, South Carolina, Wounded Knee Creek, South Carolina, and South Dakota, South Dakota, up here in South Dakota. Over 300 were killed, and their bodies, the holes were dug and their bodies were thrown in mass graves. Over 200 to 300 Sioux Indians that were part of Chief Sitting Bull's crew were thrown in these graves and covered up. So we see the conflict happen here, and the Battle of Wounded Knee and the end of Chief Sitting Bull is going to mark the last time that Native Americans will resist westward expansion in the United States. We see that the first Native American was Powhatan at Jamestown, and then King Philip in Massachusetts, and then on and on we saw Tecumseh and a few other Native Americans we didn't mention in the standards. There's a lot more, but here at the massacre of Wounded Knee and the death of Chief Sitting Bull, we see that this will mark the last time Native Americans will resist westward expansion in the United States. And then we see the lands of these Native Americans are going to eventually, over time, from 1784, 1810, they're going to diminish and go slower and smaller and smaller on these reservations, small reservations. And we see that here in present day there's very few Indian reservations. So as the United States expands, the Native Americans' land it contracted. Okay, so have we met our objective? Have we talked about what we needed to talk about? Did we talk about the growth of westward population and its impact on Native Americans with reference to Sitting Bull and Wounded Knee? I think we have. Look back over the video, read your study guide, listen in class, raise your hand if you have questions. Good luck on the quiz and the EOCT.